We're going to talk about how to use Visual Studio and GitHub together so you can connect the two. The first thing you have to do is bring up Visual Studio, but don't bring up Visual Studio Code. That's a different product. And I'm just going to show you the difference here. This is Visual Studio. When you go into Visual Studio, it kind of looks different than Visual Studio Code. Let me see if I can pull up Visual Studio Code and show you that difference. Okay, I have them side by side here. You know, if you look at this one here, it actually says Visual Studio Code here, and it has a blue icon, and then Visual Studio is purple. So if you do not have Visual Studio installed, install that. And I have Visual Studio 19 installed. Okay, the next thing you're going to have to do is connect your account to your GitHub. That's the next step. And so your account information is right here, and we click Account Settings. You can see I've already added this GitHub account for me that exists. So you probably don't have it, in which case you would add it so that you connect the two with your GitHub. So connect your GitHub account. After you've connected it to GitHub, we want to go back to the start page if you're not on the start page, which you probably aren't. So you go under File, and you can go to the Start window. From here, we can open a connection to GitHub. What we want to do is clone a repository, which is connecting the code that's up in GitHub with what we have locally on our machine. And that way we can make local changes here and push it up to the repository in GitHub. So we're going to click here, and here it wants to know the repository location, and so we can get that from GitHub. An easy way to do this is to do the browse repository. So I'm going to browse GitHub, and since it knows who I am, it can show me these two apps that I've pushed up to GitHub. And the one that we're going to play around with, or just start with in this example video, is let's work with the client one. So we click it, and we say clone. It's cloning the code, and you notice it said where it's putting the code. By the way, it's, you know, in my case, users Brock source repos. Let's create a let's actually install the GitHub extension for Visual Studio. The way you do that is you go under extensions, manage extensions, and you could search for it. It looks like it's so popular, maybe it's coming up to the front. Well, let's download that. Let's make a change to the source code and just get a little bit of a feel for what GitHub does and how it works. I'm going to make a change to this file here, create.js. So bring up create.js, and let's make a change to a heading, something that's kind of safe that won't break the app. So I'm going to change this to, instead of create new record, I'm going to change it to create new employee record. I'm going to save it. And then if I go over here under the Get panel, a really great feature is it shows you all the files that are different from what they are in the repository. Now, some of these files that have changed in the repository, we probably do not want to push up to the repository because they're kind of local changes for us. So these three files here, they're not code that we changed. This looks like they're project settings. I'm not so sure that we want to change that. Also, this A stands for added, so it's a file that's not under project control. So I doubt that we want to add it. We're just kind of it's not really part of the source code in a way. But this file here we did change. You can see the M is modified, and then if you do a right click on this, which is really great, you can compare with the unmodified version. This is so useful because lots of times you'll make a change and suddenly it won't work, and it's like, I don't even remember what I did because I changed about 3 things. And so you can actually look at the changes that you did and kind of figure out which one change you made that might not have worked. This is also really good if you're getting ready to check it in. You can see what changes you're about to put into the code repository that everybody else can pick up. We're going to talk about this more in the lecture, so I'm not going to talk about it anymore now, but that's really great. And the other thing that's kind of really great too is sometimes you make a change and it's like, oh my gosh, I don't want that change at all because I just broke everything, and let's just pretend it never happened. You can hit undo changes and it'll reverse that change you made in the file. So like if you made a change and it stopped working and you can't remember what you did, you can undo things like that. Okay, but let's go back and make this change because we're going to actually commit it. So I saved it. We're going to go to this file here. We're going to do a right click on it and we're going to stage it. That's checking it in kind of to our local repository to get it ready to be committed. And I'm just going to do this real roughly, these commands. And so what we want to do is we want to commit this and push this. I'm going to try doing commit staged and pushed. Commit staged and push. So this is, it's forcing us to put a comment in, which is really good. This comment is going under version control. You want to have a meaningful comment because people can look through, well actually it's more like you can look through what you changed and kind of remember what the point of that change was. So I'm just going to say change new employee heading, something like that. Commit staged and pushed. And then it did it. Okay, I think it did it. Okay, so we're going to go over here and we're going to check it. So I'm up here. I'm going to refresh this page here.